Good day to you, beloved of God. Welcome again to this podcast. We will continue with our series called Love, the Greatest Force in the Universe. Let's go to the slides. And remember, last time I ended with a question to you. But let's go through the slide again just for your memory. So the question is, when can love be truly unconditioning, right? So the first question was, how can I truly love another unconditionally? The condition for that is that it's only possible if I also love myself truly unconditionally, because of the law of cause and effect. It starts with myself first, relatively, of course, and then it can be granted to another unconditionally. That is the point. So then the question becomes, how can I truly love myself unconditionally? And this is only possible if I truly realize that God loves me unconditionally. Because if I truly believe, and this can only come from God, everything comes from God, by the way. Nothing that we have is from us. Never. It's not possible. So faith, that deep realization that something is true, comes from God as well, obviously. So only then, when I truly believe, realize that God loves me unconditionally, my own creator, my creator loves me unconditionally, then I can love myself unconditionally as well. But also, I want to find out something even deeper. Well, it's the deepest question of all. And on the other hand, it is the most simple question of all if you understand the law of cause and effect. Because how can God love me unconditionally? How does He do it, so to speak? And the answer is that it's only possible if He also loves Himself unconditionally. Oh yeah, it was a simple one and a very logical one as well. But I don't know if you had the answer. It's up to you to decide for yourself. So this is the condition. This is why God loves me unconditionally, because He loves Himself unconditionally. That's the reason. Okay, so that is about the law of cause and effect. So now the second one, to be going through that's only one slide. The law of attention. If you give sincere attention to a plant, it will grow and it will bloom, right? And of course, the other way around, if you give bad attention to that plant, you think negatively about that plant, it will wither soon, of course. How does the plant feel in that sense that your attention is sincere, that it's positive and sincere? It is through the energy you radiate. And it happens subconsciously. We don't even realize that we're doing it. But if you think about someone else negatively, you radiate those frequencies. So these are frequencies and vibrations and pulsations as well. So these you emit without you knowing it. That is the reason that the plant feels it, and it blossoms and it grows. So this also applies, like I said, in the reverse sense. Obviously, if you emit negative energies, that's also possible. That will affect a plant negatively, obviously. But above all, this principle also applies in spiritual situations. If, let's say, if you think about yourself negatively, if your self-image is not positive, you will notice the bad consequences in your life, obviously. You will see how quick or how fast you will grow in terms of get old, grow old. Your skin will wither, your health will deteriorate, and you will get sick, you will get mental problems, etc., etc. It is terrible. So it's very important to align your vision with the truth. And what is the truth? The truth is that you are valuable beyond any measure. That is the truth, because you're a work of God's hands, and God loves you unconditionally. So, of course, your value cannot even be measured. That is the truth. So, align your view with the truth. The only way to have a truly positive self-image is if your image about yourself is rooted and grounded in the truth of God's great love for us. So, if I think about the last phrase, I also think about the New Age movement, because, and also other contemporary or Eastern movements as such. They, I wrote some how do you say that, notes underneath the slides. So that's what I'm looking at, and it's difficult without glasses, but it's just in between. Let's read it. So the New Age and other contemporary Eastern movements, they root their self-image in our divinity. So they say God is in all of us. There is where they slip. That's where they go wrong already. So they talk about the beauty that the universe or the Almighty has made in us, and they are sadly deluded. What I mean by that is, yes, of course, we are made beautifully. Yes. But we are not God. And that's what they say. And that is exactly the deception that the adversary, the Satan, will use in the near future to make people think that they are God. They are divine. They are God. And that is a lie. That is what the number 6 or 66 or 666 is speaking of. It is a number of man. And man in terms of relying on themselves. And there is where the world will totally deteriorate. So it is a deception, and it is only form, let's say the outer shell. That is what it is. It is not rooted and grounded in the absolute truth of God's great love for us all. It's not rooted in that at all. It is rooted in themselves. The foundation is not God. The foundation is themselves. So take that into account and be aware of it and of the fact that it's coming as well. It's on its way. Let's continue with the law of leverage. That is, to me, in this context, the most important one. So how does it work? Well known. I've talked about this more often. First, this is the leverage, right? You push the short side downwards. Boom. What happens? The long side automatically goes upwards, right? So what is the principle behind it? First, you need to take the short-term pain of discipline. Then you can have the long-term yield of lots of fruit. Meaning that the yield of lots of fruit will, you would say, automatically come when you are how do you say that, where you are prepared and you do the work beforehand. And the work is taking the pain of discipline. But you can also avoid that pain up front, but then it has consequences if you do that. And that's the last point. If you make it easy for yourself in the short term, so no pain, you are avoiding that pain, then in the long term you will have a huge regret, the pain of regret, which is 100 times bigger than the pain of discipline up front. That is the principle behind it. So let's go through it. Let's look at principles of law first. The law in itself is good. It's good. But it's about external coercion, right? Because you are telling your child, for instance, to do this, to do that, or else. So it is externally imposed upon someone. It also assumes short-term results. So that's the opposite of how it should be in the normal situations, in an adult situation. Let me put it like that. So it assumes short-term results. The result even stimulates more offense. So when you are applying the principle of law, it will stimulate more offense because, like I already said more often in the past, people have the tendency to disobey law. It's always like that because they are nosy. They want to know what's happening when you do it, that very thing that you are forbidden to do. And then that fruit tastes extra sweet because you are doing something forbidden. So that is how God designed humans and created them. Also, law, the point of departure is distrust. If you are honest, you will see this also. If you impose law on another, it's about distrust. And it's about something, let me mention it immediately. Distrust is not wrong in itself when it is about someone who is definitely and provable not able to lead their own life. What do I mean? I mean children, little children. So if you are bringing up little children, of course you will start with law. That is the wise thing to do because they are not even capable of having maybe a normal conversation with you. I'm talking about a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, maybe 3 years old. So they need law because they don't know. They cannot guide themselves in that sense. So they need law. They need a certain coercion, so to speak. Do that or else. So distrust is also good in that sense. When it's talking about true immaturity, then the distrust is wise because you already know beforehand that it will go wrong if you leave them be. So it also raises the law, raises as a strict escort. You can read that in Galatians. Not sure what chapter it was. I think 5 or 3. The law was given as a strict escort to guide them to Christ, because that is the mature destiny, so to speak. So also law, educating in law or upbringing with law is part of the natural tendency of humans, of course. So we are tending to make it easy for ourselves in the short term. If you say to your child, you cannot go there, and a child begins to cry, then you can say, go to your room, as an example. And it is an easy way out for the parent in that sense. It's an easy way out. Go to your room and stay there. However, if you want that child to be mature and to become mature, then you will explain why something is not wise to do and why another thing is better to do, etc., etc. So that child will slowly and gradually become the owner, the true owner of their own decisions. I'm talking relatively obviously. So this principle of law is the opposite of what? Principle of grace, obviously. So let's see, because I think I'm getting behind. Let me check something quickly. Okay. I think it's going quite well. Okay, so the principle of grace, we're going through that as well. And that will be then the last slide. So grace, as you already know, is favor that is unmerited. It's a gift that someone doesn't deserve. The receiver doesn't deserve. It is default always the same with grace. Grace is a gift given to someone who doesn't deserve it. So if you do that, then there is no condition for granting that person your gift, because you do not give them that gift or that present because of them, because they don't deserve it. So their behavior is not the cause of your granting that present. No, it's your decision. It's how you think about the person that makes you grant that present, right? So that is the character of grace. So the realization of the receiving of grace, the awareness of that, it generates joy. Why? It starts with gratitude, gratefulness. So you receive something that you know you don't deserve, but if you think about it, it will make you grateful. There will become some a portion of gratitude in your heart, and that gratitude generates joy. It will make you really joyful. That is what grace does. If you really realize it, if you really know it, like the Greek word metanoia, you really realize it, it hits you, then you become grateful and it generates joy. Also, the principle of grace, using that, assumes a long-term result, like I already said earlier. If you bring your child up or your son or daughter up with grace, you explain things so that they are understanding it step by step, and they will internalize it. They will become the owner of their own thinking. They will become the owner of their own visions and viewpoints, and therefore decisions. Again, relatively. So it assumes a long-term yield, and grace trusts the other. So you explain it to your son or daughter, and then you leave them, let them make their own decision. Let them make their own mistakes also. But you keep on loving them, even if they did something you wish they wouldn't do. They did it, and they fell flat on their face. Even then, you keep on loving them, and you will not blame them. I told you that. No, or I warned you about this. No. No, you trust. You show trust. And you know, and you have the wisdom that they will learn the best way to make mistakes. And then they will learn even more about that. So, it educates, like I said, with ownership, with own responsibility. And the consequence of this principle, applying that principle, is the tendency to transgress will become less and less and less. Because you are so grateful to that person who gave you that present, unmerited, you didn't deserve it, you are grateful. And that means you don't have the tendency anymore to sin, to transgress. It will diminish. It will become less and less. It will decrease. So the principle of grace, contrary to the principle of law, is therefore not the natural tendency of humans, but it works counterintuitively. Because your first hunch, your first intuition will say, punish them or send them to their room. That's the easy way in the short term. But it will work terrible results in the long term. So this works counterintuitively, but if you have wisdom and you know about these principles, you will apply it. And that will yield great results in the long term. So this was the end of this part, and I will see you next part, hopefully. Thanks for watching.